Like with every other major issue in the United States, some folks are going to be for it and some opposed. The new Arizona immigration law is no exception. The New York Times noted that 51% of respondents agreed that the new legislation was warranted and beneficial, but 49% thought it was an excuse for police officers to use racial profiling. We explore the pros and the cons of this controversial law on this installment of The Professors.
From across the city and the 7 city colleges of Chicago, broadcasting from 63rd and Halsted at Kennedy King College. Professors take the art of conversation to a higher degree.
Say illegal immigration is a very serious problem. This is up 5 points from 2 years ago. Just 1 in 10 say it is not a problem. In addition, more than 3 in 4, 78% say the United States should be doing more to stop illegal immigration. A mere 17% say the country is doing all it can. Most Americans say laws on illegal immigration should be set by the federal government. 57% want the federal government to dictate immigration law, while 34% say it should be left to the states. There's so much to cover in this half an hour, so let's get started. Our guests today are Professor Connie Mixon, Director of Urban Studies at Elmhurst College, Community Organizer Jorge Mujica, Professor Luis Delgado of Olive Harvey College, and Rafael Rivadeneira, President of the Republican National Hispanic Assembly of Illinois. Let's begin with Rafael. Rafael, why did Arizona enact this law?
Well, Arizona enacted a law because of the failure of the federal government to secure our borders. And in the last, that's the last 25 years that they have failed to do that. Arizona has seen a rise in kidnappings, murders, rapes, human trafficking in all this time, and nothing has been done about that. And it's in their right as a state. It's been long-held constitutional principle that a state has their obligation to protect the public safety of its citizens, and that's what they felt they had to do.
Okay.
You know, Rafael, the whole crime thing, I haven't seen any reliable statistics on increased crime because of immigration. In fact, the Cato Institute and the Wall Street Journal, not exactly the beacons of left-wing liberal politics, have found that over the past decade, while immigration has been increasing in Arizona, the crime has actually gone down.
Well, I mean, you're right. I have data here that says that violent crime in Arizona is at its lowest point since 1971, and property crime is at its lowest point since 1966. So, I mean, that's a debatable issue. Whether
I'll give you the other
sure.
reason. It's election time.
Okay.
You know, so this law comes about in an election process, in the context of an election where the Republicans decide that they are not going to lose the state no matter what.
Okay.
And one of the matters is Latino population.
Okay.
You know, increasing Latino populations that tends to vote for Democrats are a risk, big risk for the Republican Party.
And also it's a moment where there's a big economic crisis, and historically immigrants everywhere, not only in the U.S., but everywhere you look, that have been used as scapegoats for economic problems.
Okay, so let's talk about what does this law say and what does it do? Okay, who wants to tackle that question?
Maybe he wants to defend it.
Why don't let's lay it out on the table before we we get into our boxing
First,
match
I'd like
here.
to say, even though I
Sure.
might be the minority at this table,
Okay.
this law has bipartisan support across Democrats and Republicans, not only in Arizona, but across the country.
Okay.
This law, first of all, what sprung this is citizens of Arizona is getting shot on their property by illegal immigrants. Phoenix becoming the kidnapping capital of the world recently. And whether statistics are up or down, the point being is that the issue right now is becoming uncontrollable. Something has to be done. It's our nation's best interest to have secure borders. Every other country on the planet does that, except the United States. And I think trying to defend this from any other point of view does not have the interest of the United States firsthand.
Okay.
No, but wait a second. But we are mixing again, and that's the very basis of why the immigration problem is so complicated, because we are mixing national security with immigration, and I contend that they are not together.
Okay,
Mr.
why not?
Kranz, who is the person who was killed, nobody has proven that he was killed by an immigrant, whether with documents or not. But what has been proven is that he had 30 kilos of marijuana in his ranch. So it seems that he was, drug dealing. But what's the relationship with immigration?
Okay, actually,
But
let
that
me ask
doesn't
you.
make the story.
Well, actually, let me ask him a question though, because I think this is very important. Because why is immigration not an issue of national security. I think I'd like to hear that argument because I think that is a valid question in this conversation.
Immigration is not an issue of national security because immigrants are people moving to find jobs, and it's the economy attracting people, and that's immigration. Everything else, is the drug dealing, the weapons dealing. Arizona is the #1 state dealing weapons illegally to Mexico. That's national security, but not immigration. People looking for jobs, you tell me where does that fit in national security?
Connie, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just getting back to your original question about what the law does. And my understanding of it is that during any lawful stop, detention, or arrest, that Arizona police officers are now required to check documents of those they reasonably suspect as being undocumented immigrants.
There's nothing funny about that at all. If you get stopped by a police officer because you ran a light or you were speeding, the first thing I get asked for is for a driver's license.
Well, you're going to
If
get
that
stopped. I'm
person-
probably not.
That's not true. Anybody
No,
that
it is
gets caught
true.
by speeding gets asked for identification. Anyone.
Yeah, but wait a second.
But I must
But
say,
how is this
Excuse me,
different from
but
just
But this is not
At this
ID.
point,
This
race
is
has not brought into
legal.
the issue.
Okay, actually,
legal
wait, I want to hear
immigration
this. Go ahead.
documentation.
This is
Anybody-
important. Wait, before we talk about race, I want to
didn't finish
hear.
my point. This is
I
very
want to hear
important
why
because
this is different
The point
from
is being
IDs.
saying that I would get pulled over and
No,
Connie would
I'm not
not.
dealing with that point right now. I'm dealing with his. Please explain to me why it's
Yeah,
different from IDs.
it's one thing your driver license, which
that's
is a
subjective.
document to drive, and another thing is that your proof that you are in this country legally. Raise your hand if you have right now proof of your citizenship.
My driver's license.
No, that's not
that
a proof
doesn't
of
prove your
citizenship.
nationality.
It gives
It doesn't prove your nationality, doesn't prove your citizenship.
illegal aliens can't have driver's licenses.
No. So what?
So by
That
having
it
a
doesn't
driver's
prove
license,
it doesn't prove your
Excuse me,
nationality.
I wanted to finish my point before, and that is most people that are in the country legally, whether it be a citizen or not, are required by federal statute to have their green card or their passport on them.
Until you become a U.S. citizen.
My parents just came back from Europe, and they knew that they have to carry a passport on them at all times. I also know of somebody that went to Europe to work for a year and then overstayed their visa illegally. And when they wanted to come back home, they had to pay a fine because they obviously did not have they outstayed their visa. Again, most countries other than the United States, this argument is not even on the table.
Okay.
You are supposed to have documentation on you, and if I were not to have my license with me, at that point the officer has to make a reasonable opinion as to whether that person has some other form of identification.
Let me say this then, but most countries outside the United States, and let's throw this out on the table. The United States leads the world in bringing refugees into the country, for instance, okay? The United States has a long history of the 14th Amendment, equal protection of the law, the 4th Amendment, the right to privacy, if you will. And so I guess, and you know, Rafael, I'm with you on some of these issues here, and I don't consider myself to be completely unopen to this conversation. But my problem with this is, doesn't this remind you, and it does to me in some ways, of some Nazi German regime,
I mean,
or
the thing
this-
is, Ted,
or
though,
what happened
is
in
that
South
it
Africa?
does-
Because they're randomly stopping people on the street.
Yeah.
No, they're not randomly stopping people at the street.
The
Well,
point
that is just
that boils
undisputed.
down to it boils down to the cop on the street.
Yeah, because it's up to
And,
his discretion.
You know, and a U.S. citizen is not required to carry any sort of
That's right.
identification with them unless they are operating a motor vehicle. I walk my dog, I run to the store frequently without
and
identification.
this law would make
I'm
it so
unlikely
that-
to get stopped.
Yeah.
On the
Somebody
other
would
hand,
not get
as a U.S.
stopped if they're
citizen,
walking their
you
dog
may
on
do
the
the same
street.
thing, but you still stand a better chance of being stopped and detained by police
Not
officers
true.
simply because
That
of
would
the
be
way
illegal.
you look.
The way their law is written, that stop would be
And
illegal.
that's the constitutional.
Now, assuming that everybody has read,
Actually,
excuse
the
me,
senator-
Okay, go ahead.
Reasonable.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Go ahead. Let him finish.
assuming everybody has read the bill at this table, which we know a lot of the people in the Obama administration have not, that would be illegal.
Okay.
Actually, in there you would see, if it's the amended version that includes the
Yes.
racial profiling clause, it would be
That
unlawful
they
to
had to
stop
amend after.
anybody to just because they were walking their dog. It would have to be a lawful stop before you
Yes.
can approach
But
somebody
maybe
about
Luis
that.
Yes,
is sort
but-
of wobbling, and they have reasonable suspicion to think that he's
problem-
drunk
the
walking
problem
down the
is
street.
not-
Let him
the
finish.
problem is not to forbid racial profiling. The problem is, what is the basis of your reasonable suspicion? That you are what? That you don't speak English? That you have an accent like me? Or that you have black hair? What,
This is
what,
just- I mean,
what,
seriously, this is
what
just
are you
race
going to
baiting rhetoric.
base on your reasonable suspicion?
Okay.
I think what we have to acknowledge is there's a problem in this country with illegal immigration.